So I want to begin with the story of Wayne. Don't worry, I have permission from Wayne to talk about his story, and he doesn't live here anymore. Wayne was such a wonderful person. He's still alive, but he doesn't live here anymore. He doesn't work here anymore. What happened was he moved here a couple years back to head up a division of a distribution company. About a year into his job, I get a call from the president, and the president said, "Michelle, we need your help." I said, "Uh-oh, what's going on?" He said, "All I hear from Wayne's employees is that they can't trust him, and their performance keeps decreasing. Please come and help." So I said, "Absolutely, I'm on it." Whenever I begin a coaching engagement, I don't just assume what the president tells me is wrong, right? I've got to collect my data, and what I do is I interview about 10 people that this person works with, bosses, peers, direct reports, clients. And the story I kept getting, because I kept asking, what's going on? And they would say, "I can't trust him." And I'd say, "What do you mean you can't trust him? Can't trust Wayne? Talk to me, what's going on?" And they'd say, "He's just not authentic." "Okay, what do you mean he's not authentic?" "He's got a wall up." "All right, what do you mean he's got a wall up?" "He's just not genuine." "Okay. He's just not, we don't like him, we don't trust him." Oh, poor Wayne. Okay, so I go to Wayne. I was like, "Wayne, talk to me, dude. What's going on?" He goes, "God, I'm just so self-conscious, Michelle." I said, "Why?" He said, "I'm not from here." I said, "It's okay. You don't have to be from here." He said, "But you don't understand. I moved here, and I look around, and I talk to everybody I work with, and their aunts and their uncles live down the street, and I'm allergic to seafood, and I kept getting invited to all these crawfish boils. I don't know what to do." He's like, "I don't drink beer." And he goes, "Gosh, I barely can pronounce the word Tchoupitoulas, let alone spell it." He goes, "I just feel really self-conscious. I'm not like everybody." And that's when I had the aha moment. Poor Wayne. This is what I realized. I said, oh my gosh, so we have this concept called trust that we all know is vital to any relationship. To get anything done, you have to have trust. But when people feel that they can't trust you, it really translates to, "I don't think you're authentic," which really translates to, "You don't own your story. You don't know who you are. You're not comfortable in your skin. You don't own your story." And that's what I want to work with you all today, because I realize that lack of connection keeps so many people from that high-performing state that we all want here at Ochsner. But what about trust? So I had the aha moment that it's all about story and it's all about owning it in order to have meaningful connections. But then you think, okay, well then why is trust so important? Well, trust is critical because what we have found in the speed of trust is that when you don't have trust, speed slows down and costs increase. But then when you have trust in the working relationship, it gets faster and it gets cheaper. And by gosh, we've heard the messages today of how important that is, right? So, okay, knowing your story, owning it, trust, all good and well. So then I wanted to dive in even further because I know your mission, which is about patients first. We've heard that a lot as well. And I know about your values, but I wanted to really dig into the research and the articles written about what Dr. Hart talked about with patient experience. So what about patient experience? What can you do? For all of you who came here today, what can you do? And there are 3 factors that kept emerging in all of these studies that I read. Number 1 was compassion. And what the patient said exactly was, please look at me and talk to me like a person rather than just focusing on the devices. Treat me with compassion as a human being. Number 2, communication. Communicate to me what's going on, what I should expect, what the process is going to be, what the outcome is going to be, the desirable outcome. Just talk to me. Be transparent, honest, forthcoming. And then the last one, which was in every single article, was don't make sure the rooms aren't freezing. I'm freezing, which I know you can't do a whole lot about right here. So let's just focus on those first 2, which is what I've termed compassionate connections. And here's the roadmap for your success. And that's what we're going to work on the rest of today, the roadmap so that you can have compassionate connections. And it takes 3 levels, and you've got to go through each level to get to the very top. And the first one is intrapersonal communication. You have to show compassion to yourself. How in the world are you going to show compassion to somebody else if you're not nice to yourself, right? It starts with the messages that you send yourself. And then it goes interpersonally. Okay, so I'm going to be good to myself. I swear I'm going to be good to myself. I'm going to be kind so I can be kind to others. But then that interpersonal is all about adapting. So you got to know yourself, you got to be kind to yourself so that then you can adapt to others. And then finally, the last stage is organizational. And that's how can you compassionately connect with a company that keeps growing and growing and growing and growing like Ochsner. I mean, what a wonderful opportunity to have, right? It reminds me of my daughter loved that, was it the PBS show, Clifford the Big Red Dog, and it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. That's Ochsner. How great is that? Right? But how do you compassionately connect with something that continues to grow? That's what we're going to work on here today. So let's start with intrapersonal. Let's think about you driving here, driving to work this morning. Think about some of the messages, the scenarios that were going through your head. So, for instance, say this past weekend, whatever festival there was, I think it was the Creole Tomato Festival, and say you had a friend come into town. And you drank a lot, and you ate a lot, and you had a blast. Awesome. But you get on your pants today, and they're a little bit snug. Okay, so say you've got a bunch of kids, and there was not one sick kid, but there were 2 sick kids last night, and they kept you up for most of the night, and you've got dark circles under your eyes. Okay. Number 3, you're driving to work thinking, oh my gosh, and I just started this new position. I love all of the growth opportunities at Ochsner. I took it. I'm in this new position, and I don't feel like I know the answers. So you have 2 choices on your drive. With those circumstances that we all face every single day, right? You've got 2 choices. Are you showing compassion to yourself? Are you giving yourself permission as you're driving in to say, you know what? So I might not look my best. I might have bags under my eyes, right? But that's okay. This day will pass. I might not know all the answers at my job, but that's okay. It's going to be good enough. And I'll be honest. I'll say I don't know the answer, and I'll say, can't wait to find out. Let me go check. Or are you going to beat yourself up and fall into that imposter syndrome, which I see with so many clients that I coach? I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough to be in this position. Why did they choose me? And that really speaks to that lack of confidence that you have in yourself, and that's palpable. Once again, if you're not showing compassion to yourself, how can you show it to others? If you're not confident in yourself, how can you exude confidence, right? So it starts with you. The messages that you send yourself every single day, they matter. The Jasmine story, I mean, seriously, that was the most gorgeous story that I've heard. I had no idea until today about Jasmine. I watched her video. I said, oh my gosh, that is the perfect example of what we're talking about today. Jasmine says, you know what? I was homeless. All I cared about was trying to finish high school. I worked on Bourbon Street, but by gosh, I own it. I now have a great job with Ochsner, and I'm a rose that has bloomed in concrete. How poetic is that? That's what I'm talking about, owning your story. That couldn't be a better example than Jasmine. So what we did, I've been working, I have fallen in love with the internal communication team here at Ochsner, and I've been working with them on the power of story. And what we've learned is in order to have those connections, you have to be real, and you have to be genuine, and you have to have the courage to share. So let's go back to poor Wayne. Poor Wayne got fired. And I'm sorry to say, and I got a chance, though, to work with him before he was let go. And I said, just give me, I'll do this for whatever, just give me some chance to help Wayne. I said, Wayne, can I help you? He said, yes. I said, okay, talk to me. Why are you so self-conscious about your childhood? What's going on? Because you kind of missed this opportunity here to connect with your team. He said, well, Michelle, I just had a really, different childhood. I said, talk to me. He said, I was born in Germany, military family, lived in California and Texas and Florida, a little bit in D.C. I said, cool. Well, did you have a good childhood? He goes, yeah, it was really cool. I mean, we were only in each place for a couple of years. I said, okay. I said, well, what did you learn about moving around? He said, it was wild. I realized as I got to be kind of like a teenager that even though you think that kids are mean and kids judge, that it really didn't matter whether you wore Levi's or whether you wore Wranglers or whether you preferred trucker hats to cowboy hats. I realized that we had so much more in common than we did different. I realized we were so much more similar than we were different. I said, Wayne, that's your story. That's gorgeous. I said, you realize that when you came here, you didn't share your story because you were so self-conscious because it was different than the majority of people you were working with here in New Orleans who were from here. But that didn't mean that it was a deficit. You turn that into an asset. Look at how you enjoyed your childhood. He said, oh my gosh, you're right. I've got to rewrite the script of the story of my life to make it work for me. And he got an incredible job. He's now in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I checked in with him recently to ask permission to share this story. And he said, Michelle, it's amazing. He goes, I arrived. I felt so much more comfortable in my skin. I shared who I was. I was able to connect with my team. We just got the award for the highest performing team in the company. Thank you so much. I was like, go, Wayne. That is awesome. Another example of how important, that's right. Give it up for Wayne. And so, a lot of people who end up getting promoted to their first leadership position, and I think Dawn talked about that today, you think, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? And sometimes it's tough learning, right? But you end up learning from that, and you end up surviving, and you end up getting better as a result of that experience. So sometimes your stories need to be tweaked a little bit. God forbid you leave here today and you say, well, I heard from the speaker, Michelle Johnston, and she told me to own my story. And so I just want to tell everybody here that I was a bedwetter until I went to college. Just saying, right? That's not what I'm talking about. Not at all. I just want you to be real. I want you to be genuine and authentic, but sometimes it kind of takes a little bit of tweaking to your story so that it works for you rather than against you. So in working with the internal communication team, we actually did this exercise with their entire team, and we called it the power of you. The power of story. And so we prepped them and we gave them questions to think about before they came into this meeting, and each person on the team shared their story. And here's what we found were the elements of your professional story. Everybody, human beings, you want to know where you're from, where were you born, where were you raised. That's human nature to try to figure out and put you in a compartment, kind of like to figure you out. North, south, east, west, rocky plains, whatever, earthquakes, tornadoes, what region of the country. People just want to try to figure you out. And then they want to know your childhood experiences. What were your professional experiences, your childhood experience, but life before Ochsner, right? And then professionally, it's so important for you to understand your communication style. So my first sabbatical, because I'm about to go on sabbatical next year, and I'm going to get to write a book consolidating all this wonderful data that I have about how people can succeed at work. But my first sabbatical, I wanted to develop an inventory that helped people connect better. Because I remember after Katrina, we moved to Houston, I was walking around with a brand new baby. And you remember that feeling when all of a sudden you're not in your city anymore and you've lost all connections? I remember thinking, gosh, my supermarket, my church, my postman, my deli, my bakery, all those, the neighbors, all those beautiful, my students, all those beautiful connections you lose. And I said, my gosh, when I'm on sabbatical, I'm going to create an inventory that allows people to connect better, that allows people to know themselves and better adapt to others. So me and two other colleagues, I developed what's called the Communication Preference Profile. Now, we don't have time today to go through the whole inventory, but what's beautiful about this inventory is it helps you figure out, again, how you prefer to interact with others. So when we did it with the communication team, what we found a lot of really cool stuff.